Here's the translation into natural, fluent American English, preserving the eerie, psychological, and cosmic horror elements of the original while ensuring it flows seamlessly for an American audience. The tone remains immersive with vivid imagery and a mounting sense of dread that culminates in the chilling revelation of the pocho's true nature. In a small rural village in Shizuoka, there's an abandoned school, shuttered for over 30 years, shrouded in dark tales the locals try to forget. They say on full moon nights, whispers drift from the old well in the courtyard. But they're not children's voices. It's something older, something that was there long before the school, something hungry. The village elders know. Those who hear the well's call are never the same. A student from that school vanished on the last day of classes before it closed. Only a single shoe was found at the well's edge. Now, decades later, new residents have arrived, including a child, far too curious for their own good. What dwells in the depths of that well isn't water or mud. It's something that wants to communicate, something that's learned our language and now craves more, so much more. Akira Tanaka peered at the old rural school through the car window as his father navigated the winding road. The weathered wooden structure sagged like a wounded animal. They'd moved to Shizuoka after Akira's mother died, seeking a fresh start away from Tokyo's bustle. "That's the abandoned school I mentioned," Mr. Tanaka said. "They say it's getting torn down next month." A shiver ran down Akira's spine as the building seemed to stare back with its empty windows like lifeless eye sockets. Something about the place felt wrong, something that called to him. The next morning, over breakfast in their new home, Mrs. Yamada, an elderly neighbor who'd brought welcome rice cakes, paled when Akira mentioned the school. "Don't go." "There," she whispered, her wrinkled fingers gripping her teacup too tightly. "Especially not near the well." "Why?" Akira asked, noticing his father's sudden discomfort. Mrs. Yamada glanced at Mr. Tanaka, as if gauging how much he knew. "Some places hold bad memories. That school's one of them. The well. That well should never have been opened." That night, Akira couldn't sleep. From his bedroom window, he could see the school's silhouette under the moonlight. Then he saw movement. A lone figure was walking toward the abandoned building. It was Mizuki, the girl he'd briefly met that day, daughter of the local grocer. The next day, Akira found Mizuki at her father's store. She was unnaturally pale, with deep shadows under her eyes. "I saw you last night," Akira said, heading to the old school. Mizuki froze, dropping a tin of tea she was holding. As she bent to pick it up, Akira noticed something strange. A dark mark on her neck, like a burn shaped like an elongated fingerprint. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice shaky. "I'd never go there, no one does." But her eyes told a different story. There was fear in them, yes, but also a hypnotic fascination. "My grandma told me about a student who disappeared," Akira pressed. "At the well." Mizuki darted, a glance toward the back of the store, checking for her father. "She didn't disappear," she whispered. "She was called, like the others, the well. It has a tongue." "A tongue?" "It's not the well that speaks. It's what lives inside it." Mizuki swallowed hard. "It learns from you. First, it mimics what you say. Then it starts talking on its own. And then it asks for things." A customer entered, the door's bell jingling. Mizuki snapped back to work, pretending the conversation never happened. That afternoon, ignoring the warnings, Akira headed to the abandoned school. The rusted gate let out a high-pitched screech as he pushed it open, like a warning cry. The courtyard was overgrown with tall weeds, and rusted toys cast unsettling silhouettes. Then he saw the well. Unlike what he'd imagined, it wasn't a traditional circular structure, but a perfect square of black stone that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. The wooden cover meant to seal it was partially displaced. As he approached, the air grew thicker, colder. A strange smell wafted from the well. Not the musty water he expected, but something sweet and metallic, like blood mixed with honey. Leaning over the edge, Akira couldn't see the bottom. The darkness felt infinite. He picked up a small stone and dropped it in, waiting for the sound of impact. 1 second passed. 2, 5, 10. No splash. Instead, a whisper rose from the depths. A wet, sticky sound, like something viscous shifting below. "Hello?" Akira called, his voice echoing. The silence lasted only a moment before a voice answered, a disturbing imitation of his own. "Hello?" It echoed from the well, stretched and distorted. Akira stepped back, his heart racing. That wasn't a normal echo. The intonation was wrong, like something was testing his voice, tasting it. "Who's there?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. This time, the response came faster, still in his voice, but with a different rhythm. "Who is there?" The final word ended with a wet snap, like a tongue smacking against teeth. Before he could run, Akira saw something move in the well's depths, something pale and sinuous catching the fading daylight. It looked like a giant tongue, but not human. It was covered in tiny circular grooves, like minuscule suckers. The thing slithered upward, and Akira realized he wasn't looking at an ordinary well. What seemed like black stone on the inner walls was actually esophageal muscle, contracting rhythmically. The well wasn't a structure, it was a throat. 2 days had passed since Akira visited the well. 2 nights of vivid nightmares where he saw himself falling endlessly through that black throat, surrounded by whispering children's voices. At his new school, Akira could barely focus. His once exemplary grades began to slip. During classes, he caught himself obsessively drawing concentric circles that morphed into spirals, mimicking the hypnotic motion of that thing in the well. On the second night, he jolted awake at 3:17 a.m. A sound came from outside his window, someone calling his name. It wasn't his father's voice or any adult's. It was his own. "Akira. Come see." Akira. Peering out, he saw Mizuki standing in the street, staring at his house. Even from a distance in the dim light, something was wrong. Her neck seemed unnaturally long, her head tilted at an impossible angle. When he crept downstairs and slipped outside to meet her, he found Mizuki wasn't alone. 5 other village children stood with her, all with the same vacant stare, all with dark marks visible on their necks. "He's learning so fast," Mizuki said, her voice flat, almost mechanical. "Every new word, every thought he absorbs. He's never had so many visitors before." "What are you talking about? Who's learning?" Akira asked. One of the boys, whom Akira recognized from the grocery store, smiled oddly, as if invisible. Strings were pulling his facial muscles. "The tongue," the boy replied. "It was alone for so long, buried under the school. The ancients sealed it there, but we found it. Now it learns through us." That's when Akira noticed they all had the same mark on their necks. It wasn't a burn, as he'd first thought. Up close, it was clearly the shape of a suction cup, like those he'd seen on the thing in the well. "Come with us," Mizuki urged, extending her hand. "He wants to know you better. Your voice is different from ours, new, interesting." Something in her tone reminded Akira of Mrs. Yamada's warnings. The words didn't seem to belong to Mizuki. It was as if someone, or something, was speaking through her. "No." Akira backed away. "Something's wrong with you, with all of you." Mizuki's smile faded, her gaze turning blank, like a puppet with its strings cut. "You already spoke to him, Akira. At the well. He kept your voice." As if on cue from somewhere in the distance, Akira heard his own voice echoing through the night. "Who's there? Who's there?" The mimicry was perfect now, free of the wet snap from before. The others began closing in, forming a tightening circle. In the moonlight, Akira saw the marks on their necks pulsing faintly, as if alive. "He only wants one thing," Mizuki explained, her head tilting at another impossible angle. "He needs to learn all the words to get out. He's been trapped for so long." Akira bolted back to the house, locking the door. Through the window, he saw the group of children standing in the street, staring at his house. They didn't move, didn't blink. They just watched, like sentinels. The next morning, his father noticed the dark circles under Akira's eyes. "Not sleeping well?" he asked, concerned. Akira almost spilled everything, but something stopped him. A strange sensation in his throat, like the words were physically blocked. "I'm fine," he managed, noticing his voice sounded slightly deeper, unfamiliar. School, he looked for Mizuki and the others, but none of them showed up that day. During lunch, he secluded himself in the library to research the old school's history. In a dusty archive of local newspapers, he found a yellowed article from 30 years ago. Tragedy at Shizuoka. Primary school. Student vanishes, school closes. Permanently, the photo showed the school's courtyard with the black stone well prominently featured. The text described how a student, Haruka Maeda, had vanished mysteriously, and how in the days leading up to her disappearance, several students reported hearing voices from the well, uncovered during expansion work. Further down, a chilling detail. Classmates reported that Haruka had developed strange behavior in the weeks prior, including speaking to non-existent voices and displaying an unexplained mark on her neck, which the school nurse diagnosed as a possible allergy. Turning the page, Akira found another article, dated just a week later. Village children report hearing Haruka's voice from sealed well. The report ended by noting that local authorities had sealed the well with concrete and a stone cover, following a Shinto priest's advice to appease ancient spirits disturbed by the excavation. As he closed the file, Akira felt a tingling on his neck. Rushing to the bathroom, he checked himself in the mirror. There it was, a small, circular mark, barely noticeable, but unmistakably like the ones he'd seen on the others. Worse, as he touched it with trembling fingers, he felt something moving under his skin, like tiny suckers contracting rhythmically. That afternoon, when he got home, he found his father in the living room, speaking tensely with other parents. Some were crying, their faces etched with worry. "What's wrong?" Akira asked. His father fixed him with a grave look. 5 children went missing last night, including Mizuki Yamazaki. The adults glanced at Akira with barely concealed suspicion. A mother sobbed on the couch. They were last seen heading toward the abandoned school, his father continued. "Do you know anything, Akira?" The question hung in the air. Akira felt the mark on his neck burn like ice, pulsing to a heartbeat that wasn't his. He wanted to tell them everything, but again, the words seemed trapped in his throat. "I don't know anything," he said automatically, his voice sounding strangely mechanical, even to himself. That night, lying in bed, Akira felt the mark, spread. It was no longer just a spot. It now covered half his neck, pulsing like a living thing. Worse, he could feel something inside it, moving beneath his skin. Then he heard it again, his own voice calling from outside. "Akira." So many. "New words today, come teach me more." In the dead of night, Shizuoka's streets were deserted, except for Akira, who walked as if in a trance. He hadn't meant to leave the house, but something pulled him relentlessly toward the abandoned school. The mark on his neck had become a web of tiny tentacles spreading beneath his skin like black veins. As he walked, He noticed other figures converging on the same destination. Not just children, but adults too. All moved with the same mechanical gait, like puppets controlled by a single hand. The school's gate creaked open on its own as Akira approached. The courtyard, once overgrown with weeds, was now eerily clear, as if prepared for a grand event. Moonlight illuminated a perfect circle around the well, its wooden cover completely removed. Around the well stood the missing Mizuki and the other children, their necks grotesquely elongated, heads dangling at unnatural angles. Their eyes were no longer human. Their pupils had become concentric spirals spinning slowly. "Welcome, Akira," Mizuki said. But it wasn't her voice. It was a grotesque blend of every voice Akira knew. His father, Mrs. Yamada, his teachers, and, most disturbingly, his own. "We've been waiting for you." The other villagers formed a circle around the well, all with the same vacant, spiral-eyed stare. Among them, Akira recognized Mizuki's father and other adults from the earlier meeting. "What's happening?" Akira managed to ask, his questions scraping his throat like broken glass. That's when he noticed the well was no longer empty. Something rose from it, not water, not mud, but a pale, writhing mass moving like a giant tongue. It ascended higher, revealing its true form, a column of pallid flesh covered in thousands of pulsing suction cups, ending in a tip that split into 5 finger-like appendages. For so long, the creature spoke, its voice an amalgam of all. It had collected, "I was trapped here, unable to communicate, unable to move. The ancients sealed me because they feared the knowledge I could share." It continued to rise, now over 10 feet tall. The finger tongues at its tip writhed as if tasting the air. "But then you found me. You freed me. And now I've learned so many words, so many voices." Akira felt the mark on his neck pulse harder, each throb matching the creature's movements. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice faltering. The creature leaned toward him, its finger tongues nearly brushing his face. The smell was nauseating. That same sweet, metallic stench from before, now overwhelming. "I want what I've always wanted, Akira. Communication, connection. For millennia, I watched this world, unable to speak, unable to touch. I learned every language that ever existed, but I could never use them. Until now." The creature pulled back slightly, its body pulsing, expanding and contracting like it was breathing. Each mark, it said, gesturing to Akira's neck, is a connection. "Every word you speak, every thought you have, feeds me, strengthens me." Then Akira grasped the terrible truth. The mark wasn't a burn or infection. It was an extension of the creature itself, a piece of it living inside each marked person, absorbing not just their voices but their minds. And now, the creature's voice shifted, sounding more like Akira's father. "I'm ready for the final step, true communion." All the marks stepped forward in unison. Their necks stretched further, skin straining beyond human limits. The marks pulsed violently, spreading to cover their entire faces. With horror, Akira watched Mizuki's face split open like petals of a grotesque flower, revealing not flesh or bone, but a pale mass identical to the creature's. "We are the voice," they intoned together, their throats vibrating unnaturally. "We are the tongue, and you, Akira, will be our new narrator." The creature moved with startling speed, its finger tongues wrapping around Akira's body and lifting him off the ground. He felt the suction cups latch onto his flesh, each one delivering sharp pain followed by a strange, numbing pleasure. "Your voice is special," it whispered, now using only the voice of Akira's late mother. "So full of emotion, so rich with meaning. We need it." As he was suspended above the well, Akira saw what truly lay below. Not darkness, but light. A pulsing glow that briefly revealed silhouettes of countless fused bodies. their mouths open in an eternal silent scream. Among them, Akira recognized a face. It had to be Haruka, the girl who vanished 30 years ago. Her eyes still moved, pleading in desperate silence. "They didn't die," the creature said, sensing his thoughts. "No one truly dies here. They transform. They become part of the collective voice." The sky above began to change. Clouds formed spirals mirroring the marked one's pupils, spinning faster. The wind rose, carrying whispers of thousands of different voices. That's when Akira felt something tear inside his throat, not from pain, but as if something was finally breaking free. His mark now covered his entire neck and part of his face, pulsing with its own life. But instead of surrendering, Akira did the only thing he could. He bit down hard on his own tongue. The pain was immediate, searing, the metallic taste of blood flooding his mouth. The creature reacted instantly, its appendages writhing as if it felt the pain too. "Stop!" it roared with thousands of voices at once. "What are you doing?" Akira didn't answer. He bit harder, feeling his tongue begin to tear. Blood poured down his chin, dripping into the well below, where it sizzled like water on hot oil. The creature shook him violently, trying to make him stop, but it was too late. With one final desperate effort, Akira tore off a significant chunk of his tongue. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The creature let out a scream containing every voice it had collected over centuries, a chorus of agony that shook the ground. The appendages holding Akira spasmed, dropping him. Instead of falling into the well, he landed on its edge. The blood, gushing from his mouth, kept dripping into the well, each drop burning the creature's pale mass like acid. "You don't understand!" the creature bellowed, its appendages thrashing in pain. "I am the last of my kind. We need to communicate. We need connection." Akira crawled away from the well, watching as the marked began to writhe, their elongated necks snapping back into their bodies. The marks pulsed erratically, like hearts in arrhythmia. The creature retreated into the well, its appendages flailing, like severed tentacles. "So close," it lamented, now in Mizuki's original voice. "I was so close after all these centuries." The sky returned to normal, the spiral clouds dissipating. The marked collapsed like puppets with cut strings, unconscious but still breathing. In the courtyard center, the well began to close in on itself, as if the earth were swallowing it. The last thing Akira saw before passing out was the creature vanishing into the depths, its finger tongues making one final gesture, not of threat, but farewell. 3 months later, the old school was finally demolished, the well filled with concrete and sealed with Shinto talismans. All the affected recovered physically, though no one can fully recall what happened. Akira, now using a small electronic speech device to compensate for his partially lost tongue, visits Mizuki at the grocery store. She smiles when she sees him, the scar on her neck nearly invisible now. "How are you feeling today?" she asks. Akira types into his device, which emits a robotic voice. "Better. The nightmares are fading." They both know it's not entirely true. Every night, Akira still dreams of the well, the creature, and the thousands of voices trapped in that endless abyss. Sometimes, as he drifts to sleep, he swears he feels something moving under the scar on his neck. Something small, something patient. On his nightstand, there's a notebook where he's been jotting down strange things he's noticed in recent weeks. How his speech device sometimes utters words he didn't type. How Mizuki and the others occasionally speak phrases in unison without realizing. And how, on full moon nights, they all feel an inexplicable urge to gather where the school once stood. Most disturbing is the new well being dug on the village outskirts to supply water for new homes. Workers report hearing odd sounds from the ground. Not exactly voices, they say, but something like a tongue clicking against the roof of a mouth. Akira knows what it means, even if he can no longer speak to warn anyone. The creature didn't die. It only transformed. It learned a new lesson, and next time, it won't make the same mistake.